OData service creation using service builder. Let us see the practical example in detail, including elements of OData document, OData channel development paradigm, and OData service document types. Go to transaction SEGW, and in the first step, data model definition. There are two stages. The first one is creating a project, and second one is creating data model. Choose create project button. Create project dialog opens. Provide project name, where maximum length allowed is 30 characters, and you should start project name with Z or Y. In description field, maximum length allowed is 60 characters. Project type should be service with SAP annotations. Generation strategy is defaulted to standard. Package, select $TMP for local development, and the person responsible is your name or an SAP user. Continue with local object. We see project created with subnodes: data model, service implementation, runtime artifacts, service maintenance. Creating data model. Right click on data model under project name, choose create. You see a list: entity type, entity set, association, complex type, association set, function, import. These are called the elements of OData documents. Entity data model or OData data model. In this example, we are taking the business object, business partner, and sales order. In both the business objects, you will find the entity sets, properties, and navigation properties. But here in the entity data model, when we discuss about these business objects, these are considered as entity types. So both business partner and sales order are entity types. These are the basic building blocks representing the specific business object. And the business partner collection and sales order collection are entity sets of the entity types. At least one property must be defined as a key field in entity type. An entity type is built from one or more properties, as we know. A navigation properties implements an association, and association is a relationship between two entity types. Elements of OData service documents, that is OData service structure. Entity type. An entity type describes a collection and has a name. Entity types have a structure defined by their properties and are also associated with a key which is formed from a subset of the properties of the entity type. The entity key is needed to define associations between the entity types. Entity set. An entity set represents a potentially empty resource of entries. The cardinality is 0 to many. Several entity sets can be based on the same entity type. For example, there might be a service that has the entity sets employee collection, contact collection, and manager collection, which can all be based on the same entity type called person. Property. A property is a typed element that represents a primitive typed data element, structured data, or a link to another resource. Properties correspond to columns of a table. Navigation property. Entity types may include one or more navigation properties. The navigation property derives its name from fact that it allows navigation from one entity to others. Navigation properties are specified in a separate element called navigation property, which defines the navigation property name, the association used, and the direction. An association defines a relation between entity types. Every association includes two association ends, which specify the entity types that are related and the cardinality rules for each end of the association. Now, right click on data model under project name, select create and select entity type. Type product in entity type name and click continue to see entity type get created. Here we are using declarative data model option for creating data model. Expand product and double click on properties. Click append row and provide values as shown. Once you have provided all the values, in SAP NetWeaver Gateway Service Builder, you can define properties for entity types. Properties define the characteristics of the data that an entity type instance will continue at runtime. The properties of entity types are stored in a separate properties subfolder within the entity types folder in your Service Builder project. Properties comprise the following: attributes, your name, type, and annotations like SAP annotations such as creatable, deletable, label, unity property, and vocabulary based annotations. ABAP type information, where ABAP field name and ABAP type segment. Click save. In the second step, service registration, you have to click generate runtime objects button. Opens a model and service definition pop-up. You have to just keep default values and click OK button. Prompted to provide the package name. So provide package $tmp and click on local object. Generation and backend registration starts and finishes after some time. Messages window appears, should have only green traffic lights, means project check and generation is successful. Can see runtime artifacts node gets populated in project. Expand the node and double click on runtime artifacts. Service stub generation. Expand the runtime artifacts node. Right click on DPC class and select go to ABAP workbench. Opens up ABAP class builder with DPC base class. The methods shown in black have been redefined. This takes place every time you generate your project. The ODATA channel development paradigm. NetWeaver Gateway services with respect to OData programming model consists of four components. The implementation of MPC that provides the runtime representation of our model definition. The implementation of DPC that is called at runtime to perform data requests. The technical service name that is used to register the service in SAP system. The technical model name that is used to register the model in SAP system. The technical service name and technical model name are automatically generated with the MPC and DPC classes when generating a project using Builder. MPC is an ABAP class that provides the runtime representation of model definition. That is, it defines the entity data model of a service. All model information that is defined in project is generated into MPC. So we have to regenerate MPC every time we change the model definition in project. Everything found in service metadata document of OData service published via SAP NetWeaver Gateway has programmatically been defined in MPC. Technically, the model definition is actually generated into two classes. The base class with suffix underscore MPC is derived from the superclass the extension class with suffix underscore MPC underscore ext has the base class as superclass. It will be registered via the technical model name that support model provider class. Coming to data provider class, it is also an ABAP class that provides all methods required to handle OData requests. It's called at runtime to perform these requests. DPC executes create, read, update, delete, query and more options. Technically, the model definition is actually generated into two classes. The base class with suffix underscore DPC and the extension class with suffix underscore DPC underscore ext inherits from DPC base class. It will be registered via the technical service name. It is executed in our OData service. Entity set specific methods. For each entity set, the service creates methods that are called by framework. If a create, read, update or delete method is sent to this entity set. For an entity set, the methods created in the base class are entity set create entity, entity set delete entity, entity set get entity, and entity set get entity set, entity set update entity. The next step is service maintenance. You find an entry in each project under the service maintenance node. Double click the entry to see details. Click the register button. Confirm the pop-up by clicking S. Provide system alias in the next pop-up and click OK button. Next pop-up with more fields, that is add service pop-up, appears. Here we find technical service name, technical model name, etc. Leave default values and provide package and click OK button. Service registration and activation takes place and we are taken back to service builder and backend system. If successful, system overview screen will display a green traffic lights. The OData service is now registered and active, means can be consumed. Click maintain button and confirm pop-up if any. this screen appears. Click on Gateway Client or use transaction iwfnd/gw_client to consume the service. Type the URI, that is SAP, OPU, ODATA, SAP, the project name that you created, followed by _SRV, that is the OData service name for your project, and click execute to get service document. Add $metadata to the existing URI and execute to get service metadata document. Go back and click call browser and allow pop-up. Provide user ID and password. You see the service in web browser. Service document types. Service document exposes resources like URI, names and operations. Service metadata document exposes model, types and relations. In the service document, it lists all entity sets and entity types available at service root URI, formatted either in Atom or JSON. You can register in SAP developmentcenter.com and get OData services. It's free. You can see the following link. Looking at service document, we find one or more collection tags, that is entity sets. You see the different app collection tags which describes each entity set. Absolute URI is equal to base URI plus relative link of entity set. Entity set document comprises a feed, content corresponds to a table, entry, row of table, each entry element contains one or more links, properties, that is column of table. Primary key is rendered into response in brackets after the name of entity set. Example, business partner collection, and within brackets you can see the primary key. Navigation property found as link in each entry. Using the query parameter, that is SAP ds debug is equal to true, server responses are rendered as HTML page with active links in any browser, which allows web-like navigation. Go to the following link. If you use query parameter SAP ds debug is equal to true to access service document, you can browse the content of document by clicking the hyperlink. Coming to service metadata document, models, types, actions, relations and detailed semantics of model. Service root URI plus $metadata is equal to service metadata document. Its purpose is to discover shape of an OData service, describes structure of its resources, known links between resources and service operations. OData service information is encapsulated in service metadata document via entity data model. Entity data model describes organization and relationship of data resources that are modeled as entity types within a particular business scenario. Now go to the following link to access service metadata document. Navigation properties helps to navigate to backend system data. Example, business partner, contacts, / sales orders. Associations between entity types listed one after the other. Entity container lists all of entity sets belonging to one service. ODATA service creation using service builder, where we have discussed the practical example in detail, including elements of ODATA document, ODATA channel development paradigm, and ODATA service document types. In the next video, we will see the service development example using model via DDIC option. Thank you.